Yes, guys, we're live. Welcome along to Aston Villa from the stands. Hope you're all good. Hope you're all well, and hope you are still somewhat celebrating, which has been a very good weekend for Villa fans. And of course, April is among us. April is going to be one crazy month. If you haven't looked at that fixture list yet, then please do, because you're in for an absolute festivity of games in which Unai Emery will probably be somewhat trying to master plan how he gets his amazing squad that he's got right now to get the balance and the right fit. But before we get into any of today's news, topics, discussions, I'm delighted to say a new face on the channel. And of course, this is Rich from the Villa Park podcast. Now, first and foremost, we love the Villa content creators. We've had Luke on last week. And of course, it's always good to get different creators, different takes. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with Rich. So, of course, welcome Richard. And please do subscribe to his channel. His link is in the title. Very easy. Click subscribe. Takes you 10 seconds to do, if that. But yeah, welcome, Rich. And as sort of talking off air, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And are you ready for a massive month ahead as well?
Absolutely, Josh. First of all, thank you for having me on. Obviously, some familiar people in the chat, which is great to have all the supporters of every channel still going strong. So that's great. And yeah, mate, I'm absolutely buzzing for April. It's a big month. It's an absolutely huge month. I think something like 7 games in 21 days or something crazy like that. League fixtures, Champions League fixtures, and then I think we get a bit of a rest before the FA Cup semi-final. So yeah, but I mean, this is what you want, though, isn't it? This is what you want. You know, you want to be in with a shout right up until the end of the season, and yeah, man, we're in the running for Champions League football, FA Cup, and winning the Champions League, which is absolutely fantastic.
Love it, love it, and I love the positivity exactly on that front. I've sort of been, I think a lot of people have sort of been banging that drum of, come on, guys, now this, if you want to believe in a year, this is the year to believe. We're in a position now where 29 years without a trophy, we've set ourselves up brilliantly now in the FA Cup to. Who knows what is all I'm going to say on that one. We'll probably discuss that a bit further. The Champions League for me is almost what I like to call an Unai Emery free hit. I actually think he has a free hit in this competition because the expectation from neutrals, definitely neutrals, is so low of Aston Villa. And I think he has that license now. Unlike the Conference League, where it is you're expected to win the whole thing, I think it goes opposite way. And then again, we're going to look at some of Unai's comments today. He's actually alluded to the fact that he's basically some guaranteed top eight, but he's clearly not just looking at finishing top eight. And some of Unai Emery's comments today were absolutely delightful as a Villa fan to get your teeth into to see what this guy's all about. So there we go. But yeah, obviously, not looking back too much, but Rich, first of all, obviously, quick take on Preston yesterday. I know everyone's sort of done their reactions and whatnot, but just quick summary of your thoughts. How happy were you on that one? And was it what was a nice taking point from you from that game in essence?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a professional performance. I think it kind of went the way that I expected it. And I think quite a few Villa fans expected it. You know, Preston were always going to be up for it, up for the challenge, put a lot into that first half, certainly the first sort of 50, 55 minutes. But as long as Aston Villa didn't make any silly mistakes, take things way too casually. They were probably a little bit slow, a little bit casual in the first half, but always in control. And then you kind of knew that it would either be the players on the pitch that would step up and kind of show what they could do, or it would be the changes that Unai could make from the bench that would decide it. And thankfully for Marcus Rashford, it was the players on the pitch, and it was great for him to get 2 goals. You saw his face, you saw how happy he was. I know he's contributed with assists, but you always want to contribute with goals, don't you? And that was great for him. And then you look at the squad options that we've now got, and this is what you're talking about Emery being quite sort of bullish with his comments. It's like, well, why not? Because look at the options that he's got to choose from now. He's got, I mean, yesterday Leon Bailey wasn't in the squad, Disasi wasn't in the squad, Barkley wasn't in the squad, and he's still got a bench like that. It's crazy. So Yeah, he's got every right to be bullish, every right to have high expectations of the players. But in terms of the victory, I thought it was comfortable, professional, and really positive to see Marcus Rashford get a couple of goals.
And just a quick one then as well. Obviously, Marcus Rashford, a lot of talk about him now getting his goal scoring boots on. And sometimes players we see when they get one, a couple more follow and a couple more follow. And Watkins had that certainly last season. Is there a case as well at the moment that you could see Marcus Rashford potentially claiming that number 9 shirt as Jacob Ramsey's form is, absolutely again saying to Unai, hey, you can't drop me, and Rashford's going, you can't drop me. Is there a case, and people in the chat as well, could we possibly see Rashford play more games as this number 9 now, in your opinion, as opposed to a Watkins or Donny Malen?
I mean, why not? And you mentioned Marlon there. I wouldn't discount Daniel Marlon playing a couple of games up front. I think all bets are off now with the options that he's got. I mean, me and Kev were talking about this last night. You've got Watkins, Rashford, Marlon, Asensio, Rodgers, Ramsey, Bailey, all potential players that can play in attacking positions. It's absolutely incredible what he's got at his disposal. So yeah, and I wouldn't even suggest it's players being dropped now. I think kind of as supporters now, we've got to get used to the fact that that every game could be a different attacking partnership. It could be a different four players playing in those 4 attacking positions. I haven't talked about McGinn either. McGinn can play off the front as well. So there can be lots of different options that he chooses. And many times across this season, it's who finishes the game that is almost as important as who starts the game. And that's really important as well. So I think you could see games where Rashford plays through the middle, Marlon plays through the middle, Watkins plays through the middle. And you mentioned about Jacob Ramsey kind of thinking, I need to show what I can do in these games. I need to really be carrying the ball forward, attacking, which is exactly what I'm told to do instead of cutting back all the time. And that's what we want as supporters. That's what we want from Ramsey. So if that means that these players have to keep stepping up and show what they can do because they know they've got a player breathing down the back of their necks, then that's going to be way better for us.
100%. I totally agree with everything you said there, which is brilliant. But but obviously I'm going to come to people's comments in the chat about Rashford because I do think it's yesterday really made me sit back and think, do you know what? This could be a new dynamic as well with Rashford as a 9. He's a completely different 9 to Watkins again. There were elements of Rashford yesterday where I saw him try and be that target man, where he's got to bring the ball down under pressure, chest, and it wasn't quite sticking like how Watkins was. But there are other elements of Rashford as that 9. I thought, that I like a bit of that on that last man, but not out wide. I find that when Watkins tries to play on the last man, you find him drifting to the left or right flank naturally. Rashford is a lot more central, and those passes you could see from Asensio that didn't quite come through were looking for him. So I'm interested in that. But
I agree.
as I said, guys, and as I said, guys, if you haven't already, please smash the like on this video and subscribe to Rich Villa Park Podcast. You can see a lot of great names in here, people recognizing Rich now, which is brilliant. So even into the likes of Cool Boys, Spicy, Pete, James, Michael. It's great to have you all in here, and we do appreciate your comments. We see them as we're live. And Cool Boy said, I'm not jumping too far with Rashford just yet. We're up against a slightly weak Preston. I think my only defense with Rashford is I think that Rich already said it. He's done everything but score. If you really take Rashford eye for an eye of what he's been doing of recent times, it's very much been everything but that goal. He's set up many assists. He's had an impact. He's taken 1 or 2 defenders out of the game. I really think that just because he had a bad game for England, and I say bad, just not the game that we've seen recent, doesn't mean that he's out. I think I do feel like that. I feel some people watched him play for England and then quickly jumped a teeny bit negative down his throat. And I feel like that happens with Rashford sometimes. I don't know if you feel. I feel like he does get a bit of a raw deal sometimes as a player. And my biggest thing is that reading some of the interviews he said recently, Rashford, how happy he is, how he's loving training, being amongst it. What's your take on Rashford at the moment? And do you think that this is exactly the move for him and maybe Villa as well come the summer if FFP falls in line?
I'm slightly with who was the comment again? I'm trying.
Cool
Cool
boys,
boys.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
slightly with him in the fact that, look, in terms of whether we sign him or not, I'm still kind of, I want to see a little bit more. I want to see a little bit more consistency. And I'm exactly the same with Asensio as well. We can get a bit carried away with a lone player who doesn't really have anything to lose, who is going to play either for a move to the club where he is on loan, or he's going to be playing for a move to somewhere else, potentially put himself in the shop window. So if that benefits both club and player, then fantastic. But in terms of like whether we sign either one of these players, you then have to commit to sign them on a 3 or 4 year contract, which is a hell of a lot of money. And we've seen the same. We've seen it with Coutinho. I think these two players are very different to that situation, but we've seen it before with loan players that have, kind of not fulfilled what they showed in terms of the loan period. In terms of Rashford as a player, though, I think he has everything. And I've done a clip from. I've had a clip done of what I kind of discussed last night on the podcast, where what I was saying was, in terms of R9, the original Ronaldo, what I love about what Rashford can do is similar to what he does, is when he stands up a defender, the speed that he's got when he drops his shoulder from like across 3 yards is just incredible. Like, I've not seen a player that's got that turn of pace to kind of get away and then either have a shot or cut back again, or put a cross in since him. And this is, I think, why Man United fans got so frustrated with him, because he has all of the elements. As you said, he can play off the last man. He can spin in behind and then not necessarily drag too wide. He's intelligent in terms of his movement. He can play players in, playing the killer pass. He can put. You saw the cross that he put in for where Ramsey should have scored, where he held it, he cut it back once, cut it back twice, and then plays it across. So he makes good decisions. He's literally got everything. It's just that element in his head where sometimes maybe he loses his confidence, or someone maybe has a go at him and he maybe doesn't react too well to it. I'm not too sure what that mentality is, but he certainly has all of the elements. And I think coming to Aston Villa, where he's maybe a bit more appreciated, he's got a fresh start, has kind of helped him to blossom in that way. But yeah, I mean, and in terms of that kind of bad press, I mean, I've probably been guilty of it, because you see all the elements, all the ability that he's got, and you're thinking, well, why can't you do it at Manchester United? What is it that you're not? Why can't you run back? Why can't you do those basic things that football requires? So some of it, I think, is justified. But as you say, in that England game and other games where he is clearly trying, but it's not necessarily coming off for him, then that's the same with any player. Or you want to see 100% effort, and that's what he was given for England, and that's what he's been given for Aston Villa. So all credit to him so far. And yeah, man, if he's got everything in his locker. You can see how he's linked up with Marco Asensio, to see how two quality footballers that, if I'm being honest, you've probably got Boubacar Kamara, who's on a level like that in terms of outfield players. You're seeing how these two players are kind of raising the standards and raising the level of what we've got on the football pitch right now. And it kind of makes you realise, when you see a quality footballer as a supporter, that what they actually are. Watkins, for all his qualities, it's sometimes a different level when you see Rashford's touch on the ball and what Rashford does and his decision making, and that's
100%.
that's the level that you're talking about.
100%, 100%. I agree on that. And I think your point there, what I was thinking about is, for me, ultimately, professional footballers just need to play in a place where they're loved. As simple as it is, where you feel an environment of love, warmth, belief. I think there's so many cases of that where Rashford's the most modern one. I think Jack Grealish, his face tells you everything at Manchester City right now, and how unhappy he looks to be playing. Calvin Phillips, believe in his Leeds United, the club where he was so happy and thriving, goes somewhere. And I think Rashford just needed a new home, and a home where someone put his arm under. And I think Unai Emery has shown how well he can do that with so many players on that.
The other thing, what I think as well, that Emery gives is, and you're seeing this with pretty much every single player that works with him, is because he's so dedicated and because he's so what's the word? so detail orientated, for every single element of what he wants from the team, what he wants from each game in terms of tactically, but more importantly, what he wants from each player. So if he's then giving Rashford specific instructions about what he wants to do, what he wants him to do, then Rashford knows, like, these are the boundaries. These are the boundaries that I have to operate within. So, and then he knows that Unai Emery is going to call him out on what he has or hasn't done. And every player knows that. Every player knows if I don't do exactly what the manager has asked me to do, then he's going to call me out. So sometimes players are quite simple in terms of how they act and how they react. Yes, they want to be loved, but they also want to be given some guidelines about what they need to do when and what's expected of them. And I think that's probably where Marcus Rashford has thrived instead of like just get the ball and run at players and try and score a goal, which is probably what he had at Manchester United without me obviously understanding that. But I certainly think with like Solskjaer, that was probably the length of the tactical sort of conversation with him. Now it's like when you stand here, this is what I expect from you. When you move into this position, this is what I expect from you. When the ball's over there, this is what I expect from you. And if you're not doing it, I'm going to tell you that you're not doing it.
Exactly.
And that's what helps him to thrive.
Exactly. Just looking at the chat, a lot of you are debating about Watkins, Rashford, Ramsey. One goes, one stays. And if we sell Watkins, does that mean we'll get Rashford? And if we buy Rashford, does JJ go? I think it's a fair discussion. I think a lot of people again have got this Ollie Watkins to Arsenal thing in their head because of the fact that he was linked in January. Now, again, don't always believe what you read about that January link with Watkins. I've heard from a few sources that it was a dead smoke from Arsenal. It was just dead smoke to make them look like they were active for a number 9. And Ollie Watkins is a very easy link for Arsenal, being the boyhood Arsenal fan that he was. But, Rich, in an ideal world, we are tied with FFP. I'm going to put you on the spot with a difficult question here, actually. I'm going to throw a first-handed question. If you had to see one leave, Watkins or Ramsey, to finance a move for a sub player, which one would you take the hit on? Where would your head be? Obviously, ideal world, I want to keep, and I'm sure Rich said we want to keep both players. But if there is this FFP conundrum where you go, which one would you lose, a Watkins or Ramsey of this world? And let me know as well, chat.
I mean,
it's tough.
Purely on an FFP basis or PSR or whatever you want to say, probably Jacob Ramsey, because you haven't paid any money for him and you're getting pure profit from him. And yes, he's had some injuries, and we are in a period now where he's had 5 or 6 games where he's played really well. But if you're looking at probably the last 2 seasons, not necessarily his fault, but he has had some kind of difficult periods where he hasn't necessarily shown what he can do. So that would probably be reluctantly what I would do. With Watkins, I can see why you would want to sell him, and we're probably looking at this would probably be either his kind of last big move or last big, potential extension to his contract, and then he stays at Villa. But could I see him moving on in the summer? Possibly. But yeah, in terms of the answer to that question, I think reluctantly probably Ramsey purely on a financial basis. But in terms of other players, I think all bets are off on pretty much every player. I think we're in a situation, unfortunately, at Villa, wasn't it? I think they've just released their accounts, haven't they? Where it's something like 85 million loss we made or something.
Yeah, but it was.
But the turnover was just under 300 million. So I think our turnover for this year's accounts will be about 350 million. So that's going to be even more. So that's going to be. But yeah, I think all bets are off on quite a few players. If I'm being honest, I think we could easily get rid of. I mean, we had Diaby for 1 season, and then we got a bid in from Saudi, and he went. So even someone like Amadou Onana, if a big bid comes in, you think, well, he might let him go. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. And Bro, my stances on this. It's so hard to find a number 9 in the market. It is so hard to find a
Yeah.
number 9 in the market. And as much as people spew about Ollie Watkins' missed chances, right? I'm going to tell you this again. The fact that he gets in those positions so consistently means he's doing something half right. The finishing he works on, Ollie's admitted he's not a natural finisher, right? There are some strikers
He
out
probably
there. Tom
overthinks his
Duran,
finishes. He probably overthinks it.
100%. And he's even come out and said, look, I'm not a natural finisher. I'm an instinct finisher, but I'm not a natural one. And you saw that again against Preston. You know, that one that he's nearly tripped over the ball. He's middle of the goal. He's pushed it wide. I would say that, that is something you say, but you can replace a Jacob Ramsey. As stupid as that sounds, there's many millions of Jacob Ramsey, type of players. Very hard to find a number 9. So, but again, the transfer window is going to be one of the maddest ones. I thought last summer was a bit mad. I think we're going to have I think this window is going to blow everyone's mind. I've got a real feeling about it, both
there could be one big one. Yeah, there could be one big one. I mean, people talk about the Jonathan Davids and all that kind of stuff going on a free, but again, would he adapt to the Premier League? That kind of thing. It's a difficult one to say. I think he goes for someone who is, Nicholas Jackson was very close to signing for Villa.
Yes, he was.
I think he goes for someone of that ilk, like in terms of a player who's got first team experience abroad. There was the guy, did he play for Nantes, the striker, who I think he was quoted the other day as saying that he was very close to joining Villa, but he decided to stay. I think it would be someone like him who would be prepared to be as part of the squad, but will also put pressure on Ollie Watkins to kind of make sure he's performing.
No, I agree on that. Big up to everyone in chat. Just quickly want to address thank you to Lee Collison, a legend, for the super chat. I appreciate it. And I saw you did send me the pictures on Bournemouth. Lee is doing a stewarding course. So he's learned how to be a steward at football. And he was at the Bournemouth Man City game this weekend. And he got a picture of Lee Hendry. So big up to Lee and Lee Hendry, the two Lees together. And big up to Ken M as well. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your super chat. I really do appreciate it. And thank you. And everyone who's commenting as well, as I said, Rich and I can see all the comments. My phone's been buzzing because of the Villa notifications from Twitter coming through, or as the penalty shootout is happening. I know Rich is keeping a close eye on it as well. So do give us any updates, Rich, of
Villa are currently... Villa's goalkeeper saved 2 penalties, and Villa have scored all 3 of theirs, so it's currently 3-1. So if Man United miss this penalty, then Villa go through to the final.
There we go. Incredible. And great for them to play on that pitch as well tonight at Villa Park, against a very, very historic Manchester United team who clean up in this competition quite a lot. But appreciate it. Aaron has said the revenue for last year was 310 plus million. Next year expect to be roughly 370. I think the trajectory is going to just keep going up and up and up.
Villa have won. Villa in the final.
I literally just saw the tweet coming out. So Villa in the final. Listen, if this isn't our year, do you know what I mean? The stars are all aligning. The youth are doing it. First team are doing it. There's the lottery numbers right there, people. So we've already got one Villa team in the FA Cup final, and hopefully we'll be able to join them as well in that. But moving on to that FA Cup, Rich. This Palace. First thing, we really be calling them our bogey side first and foremost. That name's been branded around. I find it very uncomfortable to be talking about fearing Crystal Palace, but in real talk, how do you feel about Palace essentially, and what are you expecting from Unai Emery? And this is the big thing I'm going to say. What do you expect Unai Emery to have learnt from his encounters against Crystal Palace? Because I think there's a big thing for me that he should have learnt from the last one.
Not to play free at the back.
Done.
Yeah.
Done. That's answered the question. Yeah.
Go on. I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if you were to just look at the games on paper, you're saying, well, we haven't beaten them in the last 4 times we've played them, and we've conceded 9, 11, what is it, 11, 13 goals or something in the last 4 games against them.
Yeah, 13. Yeah,
13 goals, and we scored what?
Yeah.
4? No, 3.
4. One in the Carabao, one at Selhurst, and one at Villa.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not good, but on the other hand, if you're to kind of look at justifying it, you're saying, well, the 5-0, we'd already qualified for the Champions League. The players had been out on the drink for probably 3 days. John McGinn was half pissed when he played. The Villa fans weren't bothered about it. Obviously, I don't have any proof that John McGinn was half pissed, but yeah, and. So there's that one. The Carabao Cup, you could say, well, we played a weakened side, and there was a couple of younger players in the side as well, and so you can justify that one. The Premier League game, I think we missed a penalty, and we did well to come back into it. It was an end-to-end game, and then the game at Selhurst Park, terrible performance, different formation, but we also kind of had a goal disallowed that was. Kind of a ridiculous decision, if you want to say that, and then maybe should have had a penalty, but ultimately lost in terms of our character and our shape towards the end of the game. So you can say there's mitigating factors, but the facts are we haven't beaten them in the last 4 games, and they've got dangerous players. Eze, Mateta, we don't do well against. Ismail Assar seems to turn into prime Lionel Messi or Kylian Mbappe when he plays against us, which is ridiculous. Adam Wharton's a fantastic midfielder. So they've got good players, but I think a lot of people have said the pitch at Wembley might suit Villa in terms of the width and I guess the gaps that they might leave in behind. And also, it's a totally different situation, isn't it? Both teams probably won't want to commit too much in terms of men forward and kind of keep it quite tight. And those tactical battles, although Emery hasn't beaten Glasner before, probably suits Emery in terms of a knockout cup competition. So, yeah, man, I do fancy us, but it's not going to be an easy game at all.
No way. I swear down, if we try and play a back 3 against them and try and match them up like that, that's an Unai Emery imposter, because no way he makes the same mistake twice. And unfortunately, the back 3 that he did have as well, I had a look at the team was awful at Selhurst Park. We didn't play Rashford or Asensio from the start, which annoyed a lot of Villa fans, because it came straight after that Chelsea performance, I believe, where they, were cooking. We had Disasi, Concert, and Bogard as the back 3. We had Luca Dean and Garcia as wing backs, and then we had Tillemans and McGinn. Just the balance was so bad at Selhurst Park, and we got found out for it. And ultimately, for me, I think, and you go to the Carabao Cup game, and this is where Villa now probably, everything's falling right for us. We now have our full squad. We have not played our best team against Palace. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Over the 2 games this season, we haven't played our best lineup. That's a fact. Second of all, as well, I think is Palace. They annoyingly, they have come on an incredible run of form. Palace are on. I don't know if anyone's seen Palace's form of recent. There's a lot of greens. That's all you should say. There's a lot of greens and not a lot of reds in terms of Crystal Palace. And I just think these are the occasions where Unai Emery was signed as a manager for Aston Villa. These crunch ones, these games are important. Now, I'm telling you, I keep saying this. The double semi-final loss in the Conference League, I actually said that will serve us better in the long run. I think as a group of players and management, we will learn from what it meant to lose those 2 games in Europe. Because that Olympiacos game was, again, everyone said this is Unai Emery's bread and butter. Even he can step back and go, I've got certain things wrong. I'm telling you now, Unai Emery does not lose back-to-back semi-finals in successive seasons. This guy's a serial winner. He's a serial tactical, overthinking analysis, head coach, manager, whatever you want to say. He does not get this wrong. We will not see the same mistakes. And that's why I know with our best squad and with Unai getting it right, there is no excuse not to beat Crystal Palace. On the other note, quite interestingly, I've had a few Palace fans comment saying you were the team we wanted. And I don't know, again, that's an interesting to sit there and go, we were the team they wanted. How does that make you feel, Rich? That Palace is sort of giving their little fist pump, going, "Yeah, we've got the Villa." Do you think that is purely off recency bias of the 4 games, or do you think they're taking a pragmatic view and going, "Forest better than Villa, City better than Villa"? Okay, Villa the weakest. Which way do you think it is on that sense?
Well, I think you're probably looking at both. I think they'll say, if we've beaten them, well, we haven't lost to them in the last 4 games, and we've just beaten them 4-1. They won't really know or care about what Emery did in the last game or what formation he played or what he didn't. They're just like, we beat them 4-1 and we absolutely battered them. So, that's what they'll take into it. And then, in terms of looking at the league table, you're like, well, Forest are third, Forest are third. Man City are hitting a bit of form. They're in 4th or 5th at the moment. So, and we know the pedigree that they've got in the competition. So, just from that perspective, you're probably thinking, well, we'd rather face Aston Villa. They've also got a Champions League, 2 games to play. And so they've got a lot of games. But from our perspective, it's like, well, we've got a big squad now. We've got most of the player, pretty much every player fit. We've got loads of options. And it's just about kind of managing the squad in the meantime. And if we can go into it with continuing our form, I think we've lost 1 in 10 games, which is the Crystal Palace game. They've lost 2 out of 12. I've just checked there. So they're in good form. And they've got Southampton on Wednesday, so they'll probably go and beat them. So it is a very, I think, because they have their recency bias, as you say, and because they do have players that can hurt us, I think they'll go into it quite confident. But I think we can go into it equally confident. And I probably would have preferred to have Forest if it was me.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I think Palace is definitely beatable, and it's a huge chance to get to a final at the end of the day.
I think they might take it. I've got this feeling Palace are going to go in a little bit. I don't want to use the word lackadaisical, but I think they might just take us for granted. I don't know. I've just got this feeling. That maybe we're going to look back and go, do you know what? That 4-1 trashing at Selhurst Park is the best thing that ever happened, because Palace have come in with a little bit of a, wrong mindset of this current Aston Villa team, and second of all, it's absolutely fired us up to make sure we get the job done. So it's interesting there. Weirdly, so you said Forest before even the Bournemouth Man City game. I actually said I would rather us play Man City in a semi-final, and the reason why I say that is I know with Aston Villa, when you play against the top 4, I know Aston Villa turns up. A team that fights, a team that is very, very well organised, and a team that is brilliant on the counter. Just sometimes we get the little, surprise magician's hat, pull a bunny out the hat, and you don't know if it's going to be a real one or a fake one with Villa. In terms of teams below us, you genuinely don't know that, and I think that is something that Unai Emery, again, if you read some of his latest interviews, has sort of said his biggest frustration this year is the amount of draws that we've had, drawing against teams where quite simply we should have beaten them, and we can let there's quite a few, the Bournemouths, the Brightons, the West Hams at home, just results that have got us away, which would have put us comfortably in that top 4. But a lot of people talking about Eze sort of in the chat, and rightly so. He's the danger man, 1,000,000%. It used to be Eze and Elise, which was hard. Which flank do you keep quiet with Palace? It is a bit Eze, but they're just one of these sides, Palace, that I feel like, again, which we're not very good at this season, I feel like we've got to score first against Palace. If you look back at all these other games, Palace scored first against us. Just think Palace are one of those teams, Rich, that you suck the life out of them early on and they're hit. But if they score early, they're a confidence team. Would you agree on that? What are your sort of thoughts on Palace?
Absolutely. I think we struggle sometimes with the physicality of certain teams. So the likes of, particularly away from home, which is where I think being at Wembley might be a bit different for us. But the likes of Newcastle, Palace, West Ham of the past, we've struggled with those types of teams. And as you say, particularly if they score first, because we then find it really difficult to impose our game, because we play quite controlled possession and then go quickly through the lines if we can. And then once we go 1-0 up, then we can exploit the gaps that are left, because We've got, players that can play through the lines quickly or can drive with the ball quickly. If they go 1-0 up, then they just shut up shop, put 2 banks of 4 against us, and then we find it really difficult to break them down because we don't necessarily have those physical players that will win knockdowns, win second balls, put their body in the way, and try and break through that way. And that's what makes it so difficult. So yeah, I absolutely agree. We've got to score first in that game, and then I think we do kind of see it out from there. If they score first, it will be very difficult. They will make it very difficult for us.
Absolutely. And a lot of you are feeling positive in the chat, which is what I like to see, because I'm not going to lie, I start off positive, and as we get closer to the games and kick-off and an hour before, my nerves start kicking in and I start doubting us. And it's just the same old habit, because I'm with you. I'm like, we're absolutely doing Palace over. We're going to win the whole thing. It'll be an hour before kick-off, and I'm going through all these voodoos of, no, we're doomed. No, Palace are going to do us. It's this, we're cursed. It's Villa. So it's good that the reassurance is there from everyone else as well. But yeah, I think those early goals, as Lee said, we get 2 goals first half, be okay. But notoriously, our first halves have been absolutely shite this season, and I, fans at Villa Park, season ticket holders should be really getting half a refund, because the football in the first half and it is frustrating at times, and just because it comes into our squad depth here, Rich, really, because the bench is this season, no doubt, the substitutes in the bench. I wouldn't say save Villa's arse, but have completely done what a bench has done, which is go make a difference. Go do something that a starting player hasn't done, and be a name that I have to start next game. But why is it that our first halves, and people for the chat as well, what are we putting it down to? Because I still haven't really, I don't know if you can answer this yet, because I still haven't really worked out the problem yet. Why is it our first half is so lethargic? I think we pass the ball way too slowly. I feel like we're quite static. And I honestly feel like we don't get enough bodies in the box. And watch that against Preston, second half. The amount of Villa players arriving in that Preston box yesterday was scary, absolutely scary. And I was like, give me that all day. Why though, Richard? Anything from you? Any thoughts, anything you can put it down to why our first halves are not at the level of our second halves?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because the season when we finished 7th and qualified for the Conference League, and certainly the start of last season when we carried that momentum through, some of our sort of first 20 minutes were absolutely fantastic. We'd be 1-0 up, 2-0 up even in some games. But if I flip it, we may have been clinging on or holding on, towards the back end of the game. And then, if you look at the second half of last season, we were absolutely just clinging on for dear life. We literally crawled over the line. But yeah, I think you're right. It'd be interesting to see though how much it's replicated across teams across the Premier League, because other than maybe a Bournemouth, I don't recall many teams getting out the blocks super quick and scoring 1 or 2 goals. Forest are very much, let's keep it tight. Let's hit teams on the break. There's the odd game. Man City haven't really got going this season. Arsenal certainly aren't that type of side who will blast out the blocks quickly. So I don't know whether it's just a general trend across the Premier League to be sort of quite conservative for the first half of a game, and then try and open up in the second half. I'm not too sure. I'd like to see some stats on that. But yeah, from our perspective, you think about it, you think like Leon Bailey is so good in that first 10, 15 minutes of the game because he's catching teams unaware. Morgan Rogers, if he can get the ball on the half turn and run at players, they might not be expecting that type of run straight away. Watkins, can he get a chance early doors and get his confidence up? So that's what you want to see. You want to see fast starts, particularly at home. But yeah, it's not really happened for us. And you're 100% right with the substitutions. I mean, it was right from the first game of the season. We played West Ham. We obviously got off to a fast start in that game. But then the second half, I think it was Maatsen, Ramsey and Duran who came off the bench, and they all combined for the goal. So that was probably a sign of things to come. And now it's probably going to happen even more, mate, because like I say, he could start with Watkins, Rashford and Marlon and bring on Asensio, Ramsey and Rodgers if he wants to. So he's got the embarrassment of riches, really.
I agree on that. And I'm going to ask you some questions about squad depth in a second. I didn't even think about this. I've just seen something in chat. I didn't even think about this. Imagine worst case, FA Cup final day, Man City Villa, and Grealish scores the winner. How sick would that make you? That's how much I've forgotten about Jack in the sense of,
But yeah, he
fading
probably
out and
wouldn't
not
even get off the bench.
Exactly. But that would be that would probably make a lot of Villa fans have to take a lot of time off work to recover from such events, because that would hurt people. But big up everyone in chat. Again, loving all the contributions. If you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button, and of course subscribe to the Villa Park podcast. Just click that link in the title. So I asked this question, Rich, to Luke about some of our players and squad depth, and I've got a bit of a clip of this guy here as well. First and foremost, there's a massive debate in my head that still goes on, and I want to know what you think. And I'm sure it'll be sort of similar to what I think Luke sort of came out with. But Tyrone Mings, at the moment for me, is Mr. Undroppable. And I genuinely believe that with my heart. Tyrone Mings is so key. But we have a player in Pau Torres who's now back fit, and we know his abilities on the ball, and we know what he sometimes lacks off the ball, hence the other way around with Mings. Right now for you, who, Rich, for you, is that man that come into an FA Cup semi-final, will come into a quarter-final of Champions League? Who do you see claiming that centre-half jersey, Mings or Pau Torres at the moment, and what's your thinking about that? And let me know in the chat as well.
Mate, we were literally having this conversation yesterday, me and Kev, on the podcast, and it has to be Tyrone Mings. He is at the moment the number one name on the as a defender. Kamara is probably the number one name on the team sheet when he's fit, but Mings is pretty much a close second, because look at our defense. Look at how much stronger it's been since he's come back in the side. Yes, he makes the odd mistake. Yes, he might miss a pass or not be quite quick enough with the pass, but his leadership qualities, you can hear his voice booming across the pitch through the TV screen, shouting good or well done or great block or organising. You see him pointing where he needs people to be. You look at what an impact he's had on Ezri Konsa's form since those two have been back as centre-backs. You see how Matty Cash, how much more he's been more comfortable having Mings on that left side, Konsa on that right centre-back side, and then it gives him the license to go forward a little bit more. Tyrone Mings is absolutely incredible. And then you read the story about what he's going through at the moment in terms of, I don't think he'll ever be 100% fit now for the rest of his career. But what he's, you rest him, you manage him, you don't let him train. It's almost like Paul McGrath. You might be too young for that, but it's exactly what used to happen with Paul McGrath. He never used to train. You just to turn up on the Saturday and put in man of the match performances week after week after week. And it's pretty much, and he was just such a leader. He wasn't as probably vocal as Tyrone Mings is, but yeah, he's got that leadership quality. He's got that magnetism. He's got that presence on the pitch, and it has to be him at the moment. That being 100%. Said, there might be one or two games where Pau Torres, particularly maybe in the European Champions League games against Paris Saint-Germain, might want to utilise him more there, where it'll be really important for us to keep the ball under pressure. But Premier League and FA Cup, Mings all the way for me.
100%. And it's why I came on to. I saw that there's a lot of feel good around Aston Villa. These interviews that are coming out. You see, talked about Rashford earlier, and Rashford saying how good it is. Talked about Morgan Rogers. Morgan Rogers, before being called up for England, just was rolling off superlatives about Unai Emery. Then I see in the interviews that come out today, and even to the extent of Garcia. I don't know if you've seen some of Garcia's stuff.
Yeah.
He's so grateful to be at Aston Villa. Like, he feels like he's won the lottery almost. That's the vibe I'm getting. Then this one comes out from Mings if he wants to stay at Aston Villa, and he says, you always have to go where you're wanted, and I've never been made to feel anything other than wanted at this club. I love the club. It's pretty much everything you want in a football club. So hopefully, and when you get comments like that. When you get comments like that of that magnitude and a player speaking from the heart basically and saying, do you know what? Listen, this is where I want to be. This is my home. This is where, well, then 100%, and his performance have justified that. So love seeing that. And as I said, Unai's made some really passionate comments today about the owners, what the owners have done, has stepped up to the project, and how they. So there's this massive feel good vibe. Two more players I'd like to get your opinion on, Rich, in terms of our squad there. So number one, and again, second one. Start with me. Second one for me, a real headache. And I know Luke actually took a few pelters for this one, and I'm in his camp on this. Is that the John McGinn conundrum? Okay, I think a lot of people, and even you might be in the chat, and if you are a McGinn fan, please help me understand it, because I don't think I'm wrong to say it. I believe this in my heart. I don't think John McGinn gets into Aston Villa's best 11 anymore. I also don't think John McGinn should be a player that plays out in either flank anymore. I think we're past those days where I see John McGinn wide right or I see John McGinn wide left. If he plays, he's either in the 10 or the double pivot. However, I personally believe there is a situation which needs to be looked at in the summer, definitely as well, about John McGinn being club captain, but is he a starter? We saw yesterday against Preston that he went with Kamara and Tielemans, the right combination. Where are you with John McGinn, and what's your sentiment on him?
Well, he's probably the Ramsey position, isn't it, where he would play, and Ramsey's playing so well, right? Well, in the last 2 or 3 games, but Jacob Ramsey playing well for 10 games, is that going to happen? For me, when John McGinn plays well, Villa play well. He is still that important in terms of setting the tempo, setting the example. I've just talked about Mings with his talking and his leadership, but McGinn is like, he can really be the heartbeat of our side. And if I think about, maybe games against the likes of Newcastle at home that we've got, Nottingham Forest at home that we've got, Fulham at home that we've got, all teams around us, you need a John McGinn in that side, because he's going to set the tempo, he's going to compete, he's going to do everything that will go to get the win for Aston Villa. So that is something that yes, in terms of quality, actual ability as a footballer, technical ability he doesn't have, but in terms of heart, desire, drive, you can't buy those qualities. And that's sometimes what wins you Premier League football matches. Maybe in the Champions League, maybe it's not quite that, but certainly in the Premier League, that's what wins you matches. So he's still a hugely important player for us, and it's so difficult to say whether he gets in or doesn't get into our best 11, because sometimes it's horses for courses. Sometimes he has to play. It's funny because you sometimes miss a player when they're not playing. Like you'd be like, oh, we needed McGinn in that game. But then there's other times like Palace away when he couldn't control it because they were putting him under so much pressure. You're like, we can't have McGinn in that position. He just gives the ball away too much. So it is a difficult one. But yeah, I can see why you say he doesn't get in our best 11, because ability-wise, you're looking at Tielemans, Kamara, Rodgers, Ramsey, or Asensio, someone like that. So he probably doesn't get in. He probably doesn't. But like I say, the intangibles that he's got, none of those 5 players bring what he brings. So that's where it becomes difficult. And I think sometimes, I know, as brilliant as Morgan Rodgers is, and as much as I love him, sometimes his decision making on the ball is absolutely terrible. And sometimes his technical ability for putting a cross in or for playing a pass through is really needs a lot of work, and that can sometimes be as detrimental as a player who maybe hasn't got that quality or hasn't got that ability, who would maybe just give it safe or take a shot or something like that. So yeah, man, I don't know how to answer the question. It's so difficult. It's so difficult.
It is a difficult one. I see a chat sort of split on it as well. People saying he'll end his career at Celtic. There's no doubt I think he'll go back to Scotland.
Yeah, probably will.
Some people are saying that McGinn is a key stake.
Can we just say 2.5 million though we got him for?
Exactly. Unbelievable value. And I know Meeks told me about this last year with McGinn. I thought, McGinn had a great season last year and was hard to drop. Look, there's this fine line, and I see what people are saying in the chat. You need the likes of a Mings and a McGinn in your squad. You need those sort of characters within the team. 100% not doubting that. 100% not doubting that. And maybe that's something that people like Manchester City have lost a bit this year. A bit of heart, bit of those type of players, and why they've had such decline. My only sort of other side of the coin to that is I think we've got to go past sentiment now. I think we can't be, but they were there in the Championship era. Come on. If we want to win things, we have to let them go. Why don't we keep Jed Steer then? Why have we not kept
But
Jed Steer?
this is a question for you. Does McGinn start against Brighton? Like, does Emery start him against Brighton?
So I think that Kamara and Tielemans are always his double pivot. I just don't think he sees past that double pivot. I think Onana, he needs to get onto his agent and probably try and look for something else, because I can't see a world where Onana plays for Villa anymore. And dare I say this even more, do you know what? John McGinn ranks higher than Onana for me in terms of Aston Villa. I'm not an Onana fan. I've made that quite clear. I've been very bitterly disappointed in what I've seen of what we have had of him. And I know that we've got to give him time, but I'm looking at him now and going, I'll double pivot unless Yuri Tielemans has an absolute clanger and drops off the cliff.
But I think McGinn plays instead of Ramsey, though.
Oh, so you think, okay, instead of JJ. So, yeah, so for me, if McGinn is going to play, it has to be in one of those front three. I see a world where Sensei is dropped and I see McGinn playing behind Ollie. I think we could see those changes. I think Ollie could be 9, McGinn in behind him, and then whoever he chooses to play on the flanks.
Because I think Bailey probably comes back in against Brighton.
Yeah, and I guess my frustration is, so Brighton's a massive like every game's massive, but Brighton are like a place rival right now. If we're being real here, they're a place rival that we have to go above to get closer to our goal, which is qualifying for Europe. However, what I get frustrated at is I hate seeing John McGinn take a position that Asensio or Rodgers plays. I hate it because essentially I'm going Asensio and Rodgers are better at what he does in those roles. And I get pissed off about that because I'm like, but Rodgers and Asensio can do it better. I think, do you know what? We'll learn a lot tomorrow on Wednesday night about Unai Emery's thoughts about his squad in terms of fitness levels, where he sees that. Because I can also see a world where Unai picks basically near enough the same 11 that he did Preston, that he did Brighton, that he did Forest. Yeah. And I'll probably bang this drum and say this. I'm all for that because the most success you have, and I know it's boring when I say this, but you go back to Leicester City. When Leicester City won the Premier League, they fielded the same 11 week in, week out with the change of 1-2. Villa last year, we could name, to get into that top 4, we could name our best 11 each week when everyone was fit. And we had everyone fit. But the bottom line is you need your best 11 fit most weeks plus 1 or 2. And I think Unai sees that now. And so people are talking about Donny Malen, Rich, going, and that was the player I was going to ask you again. I just don't think we need to. People said, when are we going to see a bit of Donny? When are we going to see Malen play? When are we going to see him feature? Is he going to get game time? Bottom line is probably right now, no. We're not. No, we're not going to need to see him play. I just think that, especially because I think Bailey's just shot up again in Unai Emery's books. We're not in that time of the season with 2 months left, deep in competitions and must-win games. Have we got time to bed someone in for a few games? So, like, you just asked me about again. Do you see Malen starting against Brighton?
No. I think the situation with Malen is probably a little bit different to one or two of the others. Similar to maybe Garcia. And Garcia's probably been forced to play Garcia more than he maybe has wanted to. And to be honest, Garcia's done really well when he's come in, and he's really sort of assimilated himself to the squad and done very, very well. But with Malen, I think he's got this track record, hasn't he, with players that he signs, and he unless he's forced to, he will kind of make them bed in, make them get used to the squad, make them get used to his methods. You know, we were all talking last season, why isn't Tielemans playing? You know, he's going to leave. Tielemans needs to play. Tielemans this, Tielemans that, because Luiz and Kamara was the number one central midfield partnership. And all of a sudden, look at Tielemans this season. He's played near enough every minute of every game. Point. So he's done this before, and it could be a similar situation with Onana. Yes, he's had injuries. Yes, he's kind of a bit sort of what's the word? Bit ungainly on the ball at times, that kind of stuff, and he needs to work on his decision making quite a lot. But again, that's something that might come with him if he's to continue. So Marlon, I think, he just needs to bide his time a little bit. If he can come in and if he can come on and impact and score 2 or 3 goals before the end of the season, that could be huge for us. But I think Leon Bailey will have probably a big part to play. I don't like seeing Rodgers out on that right hand side. I think he gets a bit isolated. I don't think he's quite got the pace, like the sort of off the mark pace in terms of that you need out wide. I think when he plays in the middle on the half turn and he's got players hanging off him and he can run with the ball and he's carrying on through, like most of the time he just barges his way through players. Like it's not even as if he does any real skills. It's like someone tries to tackle him and his forward momentum just takes him through them. So that's where you like to see Rodgers. But and I agree with you on the McGinn situation. I don't think he does well out wide anymore in terms of again, we just kind of have players who get isolated and they don't quite know what they're doing. They try and drop inside for the ball, and then we leave ourselves too exposed out wide, and then we're in trouble. So I think Marlon just needs to bide his time a little bit, but I'm sure he'll still play a part this season. We've got what, 12 more games to play at least this season.
No, I agree. So just to conclude then, Rich, obviously a big week ahead. Brighton Wednesday, Forest Saturday. See Villa winning both. See us coming through. Away game, home game. 5:30 kickoff on a Saturday. 2 teams again that really who are above us at the moment. If we want to close that gap, do you see this being, a good week? Would you take 4 points out of a possible 6? Would you take one? Where you at the moment in terms of how you see this week? Because again, I think for me, it's on paper, it's a massive week for the club before, because I did see some really early in the comments, but Premier League season is basically dead now. No. That Premier League, for me, it's so easy to get carried away with the fact that we're in a semi-final and quarter-final of the cup, and that seems a priority. Listen, we need to still qualify for Europe. I'm not saying top 4 Champions League, but we need to qualify for Europe. And I'll be really honest, I won't be happy with Conference League. I'll take a Europa League season next year, but Conference League ain't the one for me. So are you feeling that, Brighton and Forest, where we play against them, we had that stupid 2-2 draw against Brighton of recent times. That was a really, really poor game. And then that Forest one was a little bit controversial. We had that penalty that wasn't given to Rodgers, and then they went on and hurt us in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I was at that game.
Yeah, do you think? Do you see it as a good week for this week, Rich, or is that FA Cup bubble going to burst because of the performance that we're going to see against Brighton and followed by Forest? How are you feeling?
Well, I think to keep kind of top 6, I think to keep sort of Champions League hopes alive, we have to win both games. I think. To kind of think top 6, top 7, I think 4 points would be good, and then but anything less than that, and you're probably thinking, right, well, we need to prioritize the cup competitions and kind of keep players fresh and kind of see how many points you can get, see how many wins you can get. But ultimately, you're then thinking, well, we're 2 wins away from Europa League football with regards to the FA Cup. But I'm confident. I don't see any reason why not. We've performed pretty well at Brighton away previous years. I know we lost last season 1-0, but we've won there a few times before. Under Unai Emery, we won there 2-0. I think we won 2-0 under Steven Gerrard there as well. So we've got a pretty good record against Brighton away. And then Nottingham Forest at home, I fancy us to beat them. Big atmosphere at Villa Park. We haven't had a game at Villa Park for a long time. So we'll be kind of, fans will be chomping at the bit, and it's a massive game, and a lot will hinge on how we do on Wednesday. If we can win on Wednesday, and then that gives us real positivity going into Saturday. So I'm quite confident, and we've talked about the options that we've got. We've talked about the ability to change games that he's now got, and he's got everything that he asked for. So the onus is on the players and on Unai Emery to bring it home. You talked about the comments that he made. He wants the players to be more consistent. He wants them to be more ruthless. He's got competition for places, so they should be performing now. So he's not really got the players, and him haven't really got any excuses. So yeah, let's go for it. Why not? Why not? Looking at the form in the league, Brighton are on some good form. They've won 4 in the last 5 games, won 4 and drawn 1 in the Premier League. Forest are in decent form. They've won. They're at similar to us. I think they've won the last 2 and drew 1, lost 2. So they're like 7 points from 5 games. Villa are 8 points from 5 games. So we've only lost 1 out of 5 in the Premier League. So we're in pretty decent form. It's just what we've got to do is to get this top 5, we've got to turn the needle a little bit. We've got to get 10 points from 5 games. We've got to be minimum 10 points from 5 games for the next sort of, or minimum 2 points a game to kind of get that that 5th place. If we're anything below that, we're not going to get it. So we've really got to put a run of 3 wins in a row together. So if we can do Brighton, Forest, Southampton, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, and that's the one. That is the one. That is the run. And I think that personally, for me, and some putting that, winning the FA Cup does get you the Europa League spot. I just don't want to leave that to chance for the cups. I think we've got to make our own fate in the league.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you know what? With that league form and everything you said, the biggest thing I've probably taken away is we started remembering how to keep clean sheets again. And if there's anything to go by, we're keeping clean sheets again. And that for me is where I want that momentum to carry on. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think 4 points out of possible 6 is a minimum requirement. Really, if I want the champion, I don't want to give up on Champions League football just yet. I don't want us to surrender and go, we can't get Champions League football. I want it. Once you've experienced the best competition, it's hard to just accept dropping down to Europa. And that's what I'm sort of saying, without sounding like a football snob, because I'm grateful to be in any European competition. The Conference League does not hit different. It hits so different now to after the experience in the Champions League. You cannot deny that as any fan that, what you experience in the groups to what we have and the likes of the Bayern Munichs and the Juventuses to go and play, some of the teams in that league. It's just completely chalk and cheese. So I want to be in the Champions League next season, and I really hope we find a way. So there we go. But we are going to wrap up tonight, chat. And of course, it's been brilliant to have Rich on and a completely new guest on the channel. And Rich, of course, as I said, busy week in April, busy week this week. What's going on the Villa Park podcast for people to check out? What we got going on this week?
Yeah, mate. As always, as you're probably doing loads of shows this week, we've got our fans forum, Tuesday nights, fans forum nights. We've got that tomorrow, obviously previewing Brighton as well. Match reaction for Brighton, match preview for Forest. You name it, mate. We've got it all on the channel. So, yeah, thank you for having me on as well. It's been a pleasure, mate. Pleasure to chat to you. And, yeah, I hope to be on soon. And you're more than welcome on any of our channel anytime, mate.
Absolutely. And as I sort of messaged you, I've sort of said to quite a few of the regulars, I've missed collabing with people. I've missed coming on and jumping into different people and that. And it's a great way to chat. So yeah, 100% we'll be getting on again. So as I said, people, if you haven't already, I'm sure a lot of you have. As I said, it's nice for Villa content creators to come together and work together. And everyone's got a different opinion, and it'd be boring if we all spoke the same. And that's why it's good to have on. So yeah, go to over there, Villa Park Pod. You can either do it the link there or click the link absolutely there. And as for me, who knows if I probably will touch on the Brighton game tomorrow at some point, but obviously it's the watch along on Wednesday for Brighton, and I'm ready to I'm just chomping for every Villa game. That's how I feel right now. I just want them to keep coming, which April gives us, because it's now or never. So yeah, big up to everyone in the chat, big up to Lee, Gary, Villaman, Jamesy, John the bleaching guy, Gary, Villaman, Cloudy, and everyone else who's been in the chat today who's contributed us. There, we've enjoyed your comments. And look, if we don't see you tomorrow, we'll see you at some point. Please check out Rich's channel, and we are out of it. Up the Villa. We're in the FA Cup final. That's the youth team. The first team will follow soon as well. We're out of it, people.